Hi everyone, Mike McConville here one more time for String Tech Workstation, Stratford, Ontario, Canada. We have another Les Paul Standard. It's got some extra options on it, switching options. I'll go through those in a minute. Yeah, this was also sent up from California. Could not tune the guitar. I love what Gibson have done with this guitar. You look at it, it's a real sleeper. It just looks like a Les Paul Standard, but when you look under the hood, they got these 4 push-pull CTS pots. Great engineering. I mean, it's unbelievable how versatile this thing is. And he's a U.S. Army Corps engineering guy. And, you know, I have to say that in the classes, when I was teaching my classes all those years, I've had an RCMP sergeant, a police chief, an OPP, all kinds of military guys. My dad was a cop and a detective. And nobody cuts to the quick like the police and military guys. It's what they're paid to do. Steve could not tune this guitar, this gorgeous Les Paul. I don't want people to interpret that I'm Gibson bashing. I'm not. I had someone email me last week. He seemed to think that if the nut was filed out perfectly, that would alleviate all of these tuning problems. I got 130 plus videos online, dozens of which deal with intonation problems. So I didn't think I'd have to bother doing this again, but you know, for the sake of this guy that seems to think filing out the nut is going to fix everything, I'm going to do an A to Z on this guitar that Steve sent up from California, and I haven't touched the bridge or the nut. I haven't adjusted anything. We're going to go through the whole tuning thing step by step, and this will give you a 100% undisputable before and after, and then you be the judge. Now, if we look very closely at this nut, those strings have been filed as low as they can possibly. In fact, the second string's actually buzzing. The open string is buzzing against the first fret. So this is another one of the advantages of having a compensated nut. With a compensated nut, you can actually leave the strings even a little higher than you would on a regular nut. If you hone in the height tolerances too tight, then what happens is you're going to end up getting all kinds of extraneous buzzing problems. If it rains the next day and there's a shift in humidity, all of a sudden you're going to be adjusting your guitar neck to get rid of the buzzing, and then you end up having to put too much bow in the neck to get the strings to raise off so that they don't buzz on the first fret. It just ends up complicating things. Anyway, so we're going to walk you through this, and when it's all done, you're going to see A to Z why a compensated nut is the best route to go. And okay, so let's get this started. Okay, here's our open string and first fret. We're still looking at the before shots here. I haven't touched this guitar yet. This is what it arrived like. You can see there's a bit of super glue kind of put in that slot because it was probably cut a little too low, and the actual nut itself is ramped back very sharply to reduce the point of contact for the string, so it's just at the leading edge. So they tried to do everything they could, and I've seen it in countless other Gibsons that I've worked on. They've done exactly this, reducing the point of contact, chasing the focal point right to the outside edge of the nut, but that still doesn't solve the problem. We're going to very carefully remove this nut and get a perfect press fit compensated nut, and then we'll check the tuning again. Once again, we got that out super clean. You can see that little flap of colored lacquer that's protruding above the floor. That's how much below the surface of the underside of the fingerboard that the nut goes. So now that we've got that out flawlessly, now we'll work at getting our nice press fit replacement compensated nut blank. They don't always come out that clean, but this one came out super clean. For all of my level 2 students and for anyone that's doing this type of work, this is what you're aiming for. I did notice that there's more movement than we need. This has more to do with these threads underneath. So we are going to take care of that. The other side, no, the other side's good. The other side's nice and solid. So before I put the strings on, I'm going to address these issues at the bridge. Okay, we've got that rock solid now, both sides. I did wrap the threads on the underside there to tighten up the threaded post that goes into the female insert in the body. And this is wrapped in Teflon tape, and the whole thing now, there is zero play in that. Again, I'm going to tighten up those set screws once the final intonation and calibration is done. This Les Paul was also leveled with a CNC fret dressing machine. As I've mentioned in previous videos, the actual finish is not the best. So I will buff this out to a mirror shine. Steve sent this all the way up from California. When he gets it back, it'll be nothing short of perfect. So we'll buff this out. The compensated nut is already done, just ready to glue in. So that's like a 1 micron finish. Those frets are like a mirror. Don't need too much glue. This is just regular wood glue. You don't need super glue on this. You always want to make it easier than it was for me to get the nut off if it does ever need to be taken off at any time in the distant future. You want to make it as easy as you can for the next guy. Just sort of a common courtesy, really. By the time you see this video, this will be back en route to California. The compensated nut, of course, is done. The frets are buffed and polished. There's a little more close-up detail on this compensated nut. In this case, it's 10 to 46 strings, tuned to concert pitch. I've got a set of these ratio tuners. We're about to put them on. When Jeff first showed up with his Les Paul a couple months back with his ratio tuners, I have to admit I was pretty skeptical. Now that I've changed over a half a dozen guitars now with these things, we're going to do a nice little taste test comparison here, and I'll let you be the judge. And what's interesting about these ratio tuners is, like I've mentioned in previous videos on this, each machine head has its own gear ratio. You'll see how smoothly the tuner needle moves. So ratio is pretty generous, actually. They give you all these different plates. You know, you've got the sort of Clusson replacement. We're going to be using these Grover replacement plates. So these little plates go on the back. These two holes basically index the nibs on the underside of the casting, and then this is the screw that's already in there. So you don't actually drill or ream or alter anything. So our next plate, that's our second string, third string, fourth string, 5, and 6. On the underside, we have these two little nibs on the casting, and they basically index. I'm not reefing them right down yet, leaving them just a little loose so I can get those threaded cuffs in and the washers on the face. Okay, these are the ratio tuners. Here's our low E. Look at how much control you've got. There's our A string. D. G. Look at how controlled that needle is. I mean, this is a real jumpy tuner. You saw how it reacted with those other machine heads? Look at it. I could tune that thing up 1 cent at a time. Undeniable. High E. I've done all my sort of ultra tweaking there with this this Les Paul Standard. Let me just strum through a couple of chords. It was quite a process to get this brand new guitar to play perfectly in tune. Here's a simple little test. Try this on your Les Paul. So what I'm doing is I'm playing the C form, but it's a G chord between the 8th and 10th fret. And I have my 4th finger on the 1st string, okay? So it's essentially this C chord with that G on top moved in 3 different positions. Here's a little test. See how in tune your guitar is. Okay, so. And then lastly, a G chord. Well, the inevitable has happened. With Gibson going into bankruptcy proceedings, you know, we still have to keep in mind that, okay, they're not perfect. There's some things that need improvement, but Gibson have done a lot more things right than they have done wrong over the years. And I really wish them the best. And it is a bit of a sad day for the industry, but hopefully they'll be resurrected, and like the phoenix, they'll rise from the ashes and be stronger than ever. You know, you look at this guitar that Steve sent up from California, and how can you not like that? I mean, it's gorgeous. I like this idea. There's a set screw for the tailpiece, so it's locked onto those posts nice and solid. There's also a set screw for the bridge. Now everything is rock solid, tailpiece and bridge. There's plenty of clearance on this guitar for those strings. They're not deflecting off the back of the bridge. With this style of bridge, you don't have the normal retainer spring across, so I've actually put a little bit of medium strength Loctite on the threads just to kind of make sure that those things stay where they're supposed to stay. The pickup heights have been adjusted. They're perfect. This thing plays absolutely beautiful. And of course, the compensated nut is done. As you saw earlier in the video, we now have the ratio tuners on this guitar. The tuning issues are done forever. You could do a classical concerto on this guitar. It is absolutely perfectly in tune. Like I have mentioned in previous videos, I am a one-man shop, no apprentices, no employees. I'm the only person that'll be working on your guitar. So for anyone else that's shipping anything up from the States, please contact me ahead of time. I need to give you the HS codes. I have a broker that will pick it up at your door, get it through customs, deliver it directly to me, heated warehouse, bonded employees, and they'll get it right back to you. They take care of all the paperwork both ways at the border and get it back to you safe and sound. Yeah, so just remember to give me a little bit of lead-in time and we can line it up. I don't stockpile repairs. I take a few at a time, finish what's on my plate, and then move on to the next small batch of repairs. And at the moment, of course, we're busy with this next production run of the Tech Deck workstations. So please be sure to give me plenty of advance notice if you are planning on coming up or sending anything up. Cheers. So here we go. Here's our G, D, A, all these first position chords, C, F, E, all of the tuning issues have been dealt with. This Les Paul is 100% perfectly in tune. Case closed.